Spanish and Portuguese are so similar that 89% of their words come from the same roots. That's more than almost any other two languages on earth. On paper, they look very similar, but out here on the streets of Portugal, they sound completely different. Take the word for bread, for example. In Spanish, it is pan, but in Portuguese, it's a very different sound, pão. It has a real nasal sound in there. So if you're still using Spanish sounds to communicate in Portuguese, you might not think it's that big of a deal, but to a local, it can come across as a bit disrespectful because of course, this is a completely different language that you're going to need to learn. So in this video, we are fixing your Portuñol once and for all. I'm giving you 5 little habits that are holding Spanish speakers back and how to fix them quickly. So let's get into it. So number 1, your vowels are probably too open. Now, you will notice this when you're learning one of the first phrases you'll probably learn in Portuguese, which is to say, my name is. Now, in Spanish, every syllable gets equal attention and clarity. That's why we call it a syllable timed language. We hear all the syllables, they're all stressed. But in Portuguese, it's a different story. We don't stress all of the syllables, and the ones that are not stressed, the sound is reduced, almost sounding like it's swallowed. So let's take that phrase, my name is, and say it in Spanish. Me llamo Liz. Okay, so I stressed me llamo. I did all 3 syllables with equal stress. But in Portuguese, here's what it sounds like. Chamo-me Liz. Now, can you see that the mu and the m were really much more closed sounds? This is exactly what I'm talking about. In that phrase, I only stressed sha. So this is the first thing you are going to need to get your head around if you are trying to learn Portuguese as a Spanish speaker, okay? We don't want to stress all of the syllables. We want to get used to stressing at regular intervals and swallowing and reducing all of those other vowels that are not stressed. For a fuller breakdown of exactly how this works, you can check out this video next. And if you want to learn a little bit more about how to know which vowels are stressed and which are not, you can check out this one as well. Both of those will be super useful. To help you master these tricky sounds right away, I have put together a free pronunciation guide. It covers 7 of the most difficult sounds that people usually struggle with when they're learning Portuguese. It has native speaker audio for each one so that you can hear the correct pronunciation. You can download it for free by clicking in the link in the description, and that nasal sound that I mentioned, we're about to dive into it a little bit more now. So mastering the nasal sound really is the fastest way to stop sounding Spanish. So let's look at a few words in Spanish that would have a nasal sound in Portuguese. Razón, corazón, estación. Okay, these words that all end with an accented O and an N in Spanish are going to have a different ending in Portuguese, and it's going to be that nasal sound that we just looked at the top of the video. Now, it's an A and an O with a tilde on top of an A. That is the official name for that squiggle that goes above it, and it's telling me that I need to nasalize this vowel. So instead of just saying ow, I need to say ow. Okay, really engage your nose and push the air down your nose as well. So these words become razão, coração, estação. Quick fact, the reason that these two languages sound so similar is because they basically started as the same language. They shared the same words and sounds for centuries. But in 1143, when Portugal became its own country, the two languages began to drift apart. Portugal looked towards the Atlantic while Spanish grew inland. So over hundreds of years, these sounds changed until they became completely distinct. So that's why they might look similar on paper, but have grown into very different languages. Number 3 is probably the most consistent mistake that I see my Spanish speaking students making. Wow, that was a lot of S's. And that's what we're talking about, the S. Now, in Spanish, we have quite a hissing S. We say gracias or dos, okay? We have a really strong s sound. We do have that in Portuguese as well, but we also have different options. An S can also be a sh, and it can be a z sound. So usually my Spanish speaking students will always use the hissing S, and forget to use the sh and the z. This is what really gives them away as Spanish speakers. So here are the 2 rules that I want you to remember that are going to change your S sound. If an S is at the end of a word, we're going to hear a sh. For example, in the word sapatos. Or if we see a vowel, an S, and a consonant, that's also going to make our S a sh as well, just like the S in pastel de nata. So what about the z? Now this is going to happen when we have an S between two vowels. So I want you to remember the word casa. Casa. This is a perfect example because it's the same word in Spanish, but because we pronounce the S differently, that's how I can tell if somebody is a pure Spanish speaker or if somebody has really studied Portuguese. Casa versus casa. In number 4, we are going to look at our consonants. So the D and the T sounds in Spanish can be quite soft. We have the tongue involved there and we say things like diferente. In Portuguese, we do have a more sharper sound. So you can move the tongue a little bit further back and say these words with more impact. Diferente. Another consonant that is going to have a slightly different sound in Portuguese, depending on where it sits in the word, is the R. Now, we have a R and a R in Portuguese, but we also have a H. Now, this is actually interchangeable with R, and we use it when an R comes at the beginning of a word, like in the word rua, or when it's in the middle of a word and double. For example, in the word guitarra. This is perfectly fine to use, and if you're a Spanish speaker, you're probably used to doing this trilled R, and that's absolutely fine. But I want you to be aware that another option exists as well. So you could also say rua or guitarra. It really doesn't matter which one you pick, just stay consistent with it. Number 5, you're going to need to look at those little words that you use so often in Spanish that keep leaking out but are actually different in Portuguese. This is where people get into trouble. The biggest culprits are these short ones. You keep reaching for these Spanish words when Portuguese has its own. So for example, the word pero, meaning but, it should be mas. Con slips out, but what we should have is con, because it ends in an M, it's going to be a nasal sound again. Con. Mucho can slip out when in fact we want muito. And si slips out when we actually want sim. Again, another M ending there that's nasalizing the vowel that goes before. So it's not just si, it's sim, sim. It's a different sound. Something extra here that I want to draw your attention to is the letter I. Now, Spanish will add I into a lot of words where the Portuguese doesn't have one. So check out these examples. Fiesta becomes festa. Quiero becomes quero. Siempre becomes sempre. So if you can, again, really notice these and make sure you're saying the Portuguese version without the I, you're going to sound even better. There are also a few quick grammar switches that can help you get to Portuguese much faster. For example, in Spanish, when we are conjugating verbs, particularly some of the irregular ones, we might have the ending oi, like estoy and soy. In Portuguese, we're going to swap those to o. An O and a U, O. So these would become estou and sou. The Spanish also use the gerund a lot more than we do in Portuguese. They would say estoy hablando, I am speaking. In Portugal, we do it a little bit differently. I would take the verb estar, I would add the letter A, and then I would add the whole verb in its neutral infinitive form, depending on what it is that I'm doing. So speaking, laughing, dancing, for example. So that would look like this in Portuguese from Portugal. Estou a falar. You probably noticed that these two verbs were very similar, hablar and falar. You can also see an interchange between the letter H and the letter F in Portuguese, so look out for that one as well. The future tense is also formed very, very similarly in these two languages, and it's a very easy fix to switch to the Portuguese. The Spanish will say voy a hablar. For example, I am going to speak. In Portuguese, we simply drop that A and we're still doing the future. Vou falar. Knowing these tips is the easy part. The hard part is retraining your brain after years of speaking Spanish. And this short video, of course, can't change all those old habits on its own. And that's why I created my free workshop, Speak Portuguese Like a Pro. In this live session, I help you move past these quick fixes and help you build real, confident European Portuguese accent and the essential grammar you absolutely need. It's totally free and you can sign up using the link in the description. So if you want to stop sounding like you're speaking Spanish and start sounding like you're speaking Portuguese, this is the best place to start. I'll see you there. Ciao for now.